Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Chapter Summary. Chapter 1. Fear over faith causes failure. What do you believe to be the most important driving force in your life right now? Do you feel motivated to test your limits and find out what you're capable of achieving? Or are you frequently paralyzed by dread and hesitant to engage in risky behavior because you are terrified of what might happen? If the latter characterizes you, you are not alone. Hill hypothesizes that 98% of individuals allow fear to govern them and use it as a motivator in their lives. In addition to this, he believes that it is the most harmful pattern of behavior that one can have. Because of this, fear makes us go through life aimlessly, allowing our concerns to direct our paths rather than accepting responsibility for our own destinies. Fear inhibits us from pursuing critical thought and stifles our urge to explore new territories, both of which are necessary for healthy intellectual development. Hill contends further that fear is institutionalized and taught to people beginning at a very young age by institutions that we equate with having power and authority in our society. Churches, for instance, instill in children a healthy dread of the devil and encourage them to lead morally upright lives for fear of upsetting God. Similarly, schools instill dread by instructing pupils that their level of intelligence and sense of self-worth can be determined by the amount of information and formulas they are able to memorize. Develop a dread of providing the incorrect response because they are concerned that their educators will judge them as wrong or dumb if they do not meet the expectations that they have set for them. Hill contends that the purpose of education shouldn't be to cram students' heads with a bunch of formulas, but rather to foster an environment that encourages students to explore their world and gain knowledge. This, too, impedes learning and progress. As Hill worked toward his own objective, which was to develop the pioneering theory of individual success, he gained first-hand experience of the impact that these worries might have. Hill, an amateur sociologist and philosopher, desired to study individuals in order to have a better understanding of the attitudes people hold regarding the psychological aspects of success and failure. And as he proceeded with his interviews, he came to the realization that people dreaded being seen as unique and were reluctant to pursue their own personal ambitions. However, he was unable to arrive at a definitive conclusion or identify a central theme that could unite all of his results into a coherent and consistent philosophy. Hill came to the conclusion that spending time in the great outdoors and engaging with the natural world around him would be beneficial to him in resolving this issue. He set out on a long stroll in the fresh air and took in the sights surrounding him while he deliberated the issue in his head. And as he thought about it, he had a revelation, a flash of insight so profound that it was almost as if another voice was speaking from within him, cutting through the confusion and annoyance that was occurring in his own head. This voice within him pointed out the obvious solution that he had been unable to see all along. In order to formulate a philosophy of individual achievement, he needed to overcome the fear that was preventing him from moving forward. Hill acknowledged the accuracy of this realization and came to the conclusion that he was more terrified than he had previously confessed to himself. His own fear of not being able to correctly formulate the philosophy was preventing him from coming up with it. And as he began to put the guidance that he received from this inner voice into practice, Hill arrived at the realization that we all possess a voice similar to it, or what he refers to as an inner intelligence. This inner intelligence is a bottomless well of self-belief and positivity that we have access to for the entirety of our life and can draw from whenever we need it. Fear and self-doubt, on the other hand, restrict us from gaining access to it. Therefore, we are able to find the power and drive to achieve our objectives if we put aside critical conversations with ourselves and instead drink from the well of our own inner intelligence. Hill did just that once he had his revelation, and as a result, he is considered by many to be the founding father of the genre of self-help books. Since that time, self-help books have continued to engage readers and enrich their lives for multiple generations, just as Hill's work has done. Before we continue to Chapter 2, if you like my content, Please be sure to subscribe so I can produce more chapter summaries about books like these so you don't have to read them yourself. Chapter 2. Get what you want out of life. What do you hope to accomplish with your life? Do you wish to be successful in your endeavors? Happy? Famous? The majority of us have goals that are extremely comparable to these, but the problem is that they are all extremely generalized. To be happy could mean anything and everything at the same time. Nowhere in this objective do we find a set of measures that we can take to get closer to our ultimate goal of being happy. However, if you are aware of your life's mission or the activity that would give you the greatest sense of accomplishment, you will be able to devise a set of practical actions that you may perform in order to bring about the desired outcome. Hill proposed that specificity is the single most important factor in determining success. He was able to clearly define the actions he needed to follow in order to accomplish his goal because he had a very precise aim in mind, which was to create a new school of thought and produce a book describing his findings. Because he had this goal in mind, he was able to focus his efforts. Therefore, if you want to get the most out of your life, according to Hill, the first step is to define a life goal that you want to work toward. He is of the opinion that everyone does, in fact, have a purpose for their life. The challenge is to discover what that purpose is for oneself. It is extremely important to Hill that you identify your purpose on your own, because he contends that the church, your school, as well as your family and friends, are unable to assist you in locating your purpose. It is absolutely necessary for you to discover your mission on your own so that it can be completely unique to you. One of the most amazing things about being human is that we have the power to decide things for ourselves, or, to use Hill's phrase, to be self-determining. Hill believes that we should never squander the opportunity we have to make our own choices, even when it comes to the tiniest of particulars, because we have the pleasure of doing so. It is up to us to decide whether we want to allow positive or negative thoughts to dominate our minds. What we choose to think about is entirely up to us. We are the ones who decide who gets to have influence over us. If we have the ability to choose from everything and everything, then why would we ever choose to make decisions that are harmful to ourselves and others? Hill was of the opinion that it was especially important to keep this in mind during times of national catastrophe such as the Great Depression. During a period in which everyone was expressing optimism, the decision to give in to pessimism may have appeared unavoidable to some people. Hill, on the other hand, believed that individuals such as Henry Ford were examples of the power of positive thinking. Ford persisted in his pursuit of his objective to become one of the most successful vehicle companies in the United States, rather than giving in to fear like so many of the people around him did. Ford demonstrated that you are not defined by your circumstances, rather, your success is characterized by your tenacity and your positive outlook on life, despite the fact that his circumstances could not have been worse. And because he wouldn't give up and because he insisted on keeping a positive attitude, Henry Ford was able to achieve his goal of producing a high-quality automobile that the average middle-class American could afford to buy. He did this by developing the first system for mass production using assembly lines. If Hill and Ford were able to achieve their objectives through sheer drive and faith in themselves, then there is no reason why you can't do the same thing. Chapter 3. You are what you do. Everyone is familiar with the proverb, you are what you eat. But what about the decisions you actually make? What about the individuals who we choose to spend our time with? We frequently fail to quantify the entire influence of our decisions, despite the fact that every choice we make, as well as every time we give more weight to one decision over another, helps us to write both our present and our future. Even if it is always true that regardless of the poor decisions we make, we are always able to reclaim our lives and begin again. It is indisputable that the choices we make have an effect, for better or for worse, on the person we become. This rings especially true when the decisions we make become ingrained in our routines. After all, The only thing that differentiates someone who experimented with recreational drugs briefly during their time in college from someone whose entire life is governed by their need for the next fix is a habit. Hill refers to the process of developing harmful habits as hypnotic rhythm, which can be defined as a consistent engagement with actions that we undertake repeatedly. Because harmful routines can have catastrophic effects on our achievements, Hill urges his readers to exercise caution in all of their decision-making, especially in those domains where it may not seem like there is much at stake. Consuming a Whopper meal, for instance, will not result in our demise or transform us into a depraved individual. But doing so will ruin our health and make us so lethargic that we will never be able to achieve our objectives, no matter how badly we want to. In a similar vein, the company we keep has an equivalently large influence on our lives. It's possible that we don't give much thought to the impact that our friends have had on our lives, but if you look at the individuals you spend the most of your time with, you should consider how their presence has had an impact on your own life. Do you engage in healthier behaviors now as a direct result of the encouragement that you receive from one of your other friends to enhance some aspect of your life? Have you picked up and finished a great book that a friend suggested you read? Or do you find that the toxic attitudes and behaviors of your pals bring you down and drag you down with them? If you feel heavy because your best friend complains to you constantly without ever asking about you, if you stay out all night drinking because your friends pressured you into it, or if you find that you are ignoring healthy habits as a result of peer pressure, it may be time to reevaluate your circle of friends. If your best friend complains to you constantly without ever asking about you, then it is time to reevaluate your circle of friends. Chapter 4: Successful people learn from failure. If we went the way that was easiest for us, we'd definitely pick winning every time, wouldn't we? If we went the way that was most comfortable for us, we would never be passed over for that fantastic promotion, come in last place in the race, or get our date request turned down by the person we have a crush on. This is due to the fact that being unsuccessful is never enjoyable, and no one has ever been known to exclaim, "Oh, I'd rather lose." On the other hand, if we always received what we wanted, we wouldn't grow or learn very much, and we wouldn't have very many chances to do either. Failure is necessary, even though it may be unpleasant to experience it. We can't live without the wisdom it instills in us. Hill believes that the most successful people are those who are aware of this fact. We welcome the opportunity to learn from our mistakes and develop into our most successful selves when we allow ourselves to become vulnerable to failure and develop effective coping mechanisms for dealing with rejection. After all, Thomas Edison was a pioneer in this field. Edison, the brilliant inventor of the light bulb, the phonograph, and a wide array of other inventions that revolutionized the future of technology, endured dozens of failures before he ever generated a successful prototype for any of his inventions. Edison is celebrated today as the brilliant inventor of the light bulb, the phonograph, and a wide array of other inventions that revolutionized the future of technology. Why then do we believe that he is so astute if he has such a long history of failure? Hill suggests that the reason is because he had a fantastic concept that he persisted in pursuing. There could have been a more brilliant innovator out there who could have done it just as well. But perhaps that individual gave up trying to accomplish their goal. On the other hand, Edison is held in high esteem all around the world due to the fact that he did not give up despite encountering an overwhelming number of obstacles. And according to Hill's theory, the exact same thing can be said of any one of us. In 1937, when he launched his book named Think and Grow Rich, he made this discovery from personal experience. Hill's text motivated readers to embrace the power of positive thinking and work hard to make their success a reality by inviting them to peek into a bright future beyond the Great Depression. In addition, the text invited readers to peer into a bright future beyond the Great Depression. The guidance offered in this book is still applicable in modern times, much as the principles described in Outwitting the Devil. In point of fact, even today, Think and Grow Rich is still regarded as one of the best books written on the subject of personal development. When you think about Hill's achievements, don't forget to think about what you, yourself, are capable of doing if you use the setbacks you've experienced in the past as springboards to new chances. Hill also encourages people to keep in mind that each and every one of their past failures has the potential to become the seed from which their future successes will sprout. In spite of the fact that it could appear to be a tragedy at the time, you have no idea what might develop as a result of that brief failure. This was something that Julie Crone discovered in 1987. Crone was the first woman in American history to win a riding title at a major racetrack, which she accomplished despite facing numerous setbacks along the way, including being told that she could never become a professional jockey because no horse owners would want a female jockey to ride their horses. And all of this is thanks to her credo, which is keep showing up. Because Crone kept showing up at the track every day despite receiving a huge amount of negative feedback, the horse owners eventually gave up and allowed her to ride. After achieving her first victory, she went on to have a successful career as a professional jockey. She was even elected into the National Racing Hall of Fame, and USA Today named her one of the toughest athletes in history. It just goes to show what kind of things you're capable of doing if you don't give up on your dreams and refuse to believe anyone who tells you that they're impossible. Chapter 5. Final summary. Every one of us is susceptible to anxiety. Each of us has our own devil that we need to conquer, whether those demons were planted there by our own self-doubt or by the teachings of others. But there is no reason for us to concede defeat to the devil. We have been endowed with the capacity to be self-determining, and we have the potential to choose the thoughts and routines that will rule our life. This is true regardless of the bleak conditions that characterize our situation, and regardless of the challenges that we confront.